this series called Window to the Past, also published by the Star. Myself, I've done some, I kept a column alive for 7 years in the Daily Express Sabah, and we call it Historical Sabah. And later on, Dr. Joseph Fernando, my colleague in the history department as well, also organized a column called The Founding Fathers, also published in the Star. In the Chinese newspaper, we also have Dr. An Huanrang, this one, who actually maintained a weekly column called 边缘评论. This is dedicated to the study of the Chinese community in Malaysia. Now, these columns actually help to stimulate a lot of public discourse, a lot of letters to the editors, a lot of letters to people like us who were maintaining these columns, and started to have some discussion. And sometimes, interestingly, they also stimulated others to begin to work on their own history. I used to get letters who came and people wrote to me because of the column, asking me, how did you find out about my grandfather? How do you know that he was actually producing noodle? Things like that. And of course, I would tell them, we got this information from the archives, we got it from here and there, and I can send you some of these things. And a few months later, you find that these people began to send back things. They began to do their research and came back with some kind of a mini thesis or a little booklet and things like that. Of course, many of them were not published, but then at least that will help the family to have a sense of the past. And this is the kind of contribution that we really appreciate. And this kind of newspaper column began as a way to stimulate debate, and today we still find them very important. But lately we don't find too many of these columns in the English newspapers now. In 2002 and between 2002 to 2008, there was this magazine. I don't know if you have seen it before. It's called Heritage Asia. It's actually produced by Professor Lee Gam-heng and also one of our graduates, Dr. New Kaur, English department graduate, who worked together to produce this very interesting history magazine. Now, at its time, I was told it has 10,000 in circulation and has a subscription base of 5,000. Now, I wish our journal can have this kind of subscription and this kind of circulation. But it was a commercial, in a way, it was a commercial effort, and it actually helped to actually promote a lot of understanding of the past as well as heritage in Southeast Asia, not just in Malaysia. Now, what is going to follow later on is I'm going to touch on some discourse on history that are currently taking place in the Malaysian public sphere. And for this, I may need to read a bit. I hope you will bear with me. I don't want to get it wrong in the way of some of these facts. The first thing that I think for many years now, the public has been voicing the concerns about the many shortcomings in the school history textbook, including inaccuracies and the more exclusive manner in which they are written. So it is a very sensitive issue in a multiracial nation like ours. In fact, this issue is among the most discussed history topics in Malaysian public spheres. This is not just an indication of the importance of the issue to Malaysians who are concerned that unless properly addressed, the issue would impede efforts for nation building. Now we find that if you look through the results of SPM, which is the school certificate examination, you find that until recently, the passing rate has not been very high. It's always hovering around 70%, which is actually very sad, which shows that history is not really a very popular subject in school. Something must have happened. Now this, for me, this actually has in many ways strengthened the attainment of the noble goal of achieving national unity, having a sense of patriotism, and having all those virtues that were the noble aim of the syllabus. There is a general perception, now this is the general perception of what the public perceive, that the education ministry and those who were involved in the production of history textbook were inclined towards an Islamic and Malay-centric perspective. Central to these are the controversial Form 4 and Form 5 textbooks. Based on the syllabus, Form 4 textbook aims at providing students with a broad understanding of the world's many civilizations. And the Form 5 textbooks focuses on Malaysia's emergence as a modern nation state. The problem with the Form 4 text is that instead of introducing students to the many civilizations, including the Chinese civilization, the Indian civilization, Mesopotamia, Egyptian, and so on, 5 out of the 10 chapters of the text are devoted to Islamic civilization, culture, and society. Now, this is very much contrary to the syllabus, because the syllabus demands each civilization given a fair treatment. But instead, we get 5 chapters. Now, these actually reinforce the public perception that there is an inclination towards an Islamic perspective. As for the Form 5 text, the lack of acknowledgement of the historical presence and contribution of non-Malays in the country is most glaring. The role of non-Malays, including Bumiputra of Sabah and Sarawak, deemed to be marginalized, and their role in the independence movement and nation building were largely reduced to a minimum. Now, such treatment of Malaysian history has met with strong objections from segments of the community. This was where discourse on history in the Malaysian public sphere was at its height and was at its best. Numerous opinions were expressed, including the very strong statement from the new Chief Minister of Sarawak, Tan Sri Adnan Satem, who has also expressed concern that the textbooks have not discussed adequately the role of non-Malays as well as the historical development in East Malaysia. Another history-related topic that is attracted some attention in the public sphere is this particular case where some people in 2006 began to champion for the erection or the construction of a monument in Nilai for the Malayan People's Anti-Japanese Army, MPAJA. MPAJA, as you know, was the military arm of the Communist Party of Malaya. And they wanted to commemorate this group of people as the heroes of Malaysia. And of course, immediately this started a whole range of discussion in the public spheres. People began to say that you can't be doing that. Are you serious about this? And of course, those who fought against the communists during the emergency were also angry about this. So you had this very long debate that was going on. And somehow this kind of debate began to have a division between those who were for the ideas, usually would be associated with the opposition party, political parties, and then those who were against would be from the establishment or from the Barisan Nasional and so on. This is a very sad way of division in a way, but somehow it happened. Next would be whether Force 136, Malay or Chinese. Again, you had this race thing came into play. Again, you also have this issue about whether or not you are supposed to be pro-government, then you say it's only Malay, and then if you are you are anti-government, or if you are the opposition, you're supposed to say that they are also Chinese and so on. So this debate actually went on, and this divide was actually very, very sad. And these are all historical topics. Next, Chin Peng to come back. Should he come back or not? Again, there was a campaign that started. Again, you have this huge public discourse. Some will say that, look, we are dead against him for coming back. We fought in the jungle. I lost my leg. And how can you allow people like this? Some say, look, he was a hero after all. MPAJN, he fought against the Japanese. He was even awarded the Order of the British Empire. Of course, he was taken back later on by the British government when the emergency started. And they said, look, you have to honor him. But of course, many people, including Tun Hanif Omar, said, look, you can't be serious. We lost lives. These people turned their guns against fellow Malaysians. So we can't be honoring them. We can't be having them back. So this thing actually went on. The debate went on until Chin Peng finally passed away in Bangkok. So he didn't make it back. But there were still attempts to try to bring him back. Again, the debate trickled on, but no longer a major issue. Next, more recently, history came out in the public sphere in a rather big way, because when someone by the name of Mat Indra became the focal point. Now, Mat Indra was an alleged freedom fighter who was the leader of the Malayan Communist Party forces that attacked Bukit Kepong police station in February 1950. And during that attack, which is now made famous by this movie by Jin Samsudin, that are being shown every year during Merdeka month, I think we have some notion about how it took place and so on. But the idea here was that the opposition party leader, Mat Sabu, actually made a statement. When he made a statement saying that in 2001, he said that Mat Indra and his followers who attacked the police station were the true heroes of Malaysia because they fought against the British. Now this statement elicited a barrage of responses. People began to come and say, how can you say that? Again, there is this communist versus non-communist kind of argument. Again, establishment versus the opposition kind of argument. And politicians from the ruling party accused the opposition leader of deliberately bringing up an issue in discrediting the founding fathers of the nation and glorifying the communists. The accusation infuriated many from the ruling party, and police reports were made, and Mat Sabu was dragged to the court of law. And so, again, because he was accused of dishonoring the memory of the people who fought, who died in Bukit Kepong, and also for making false accusation against them and those who survived the attack. So many experts were invited, among them Dr. Carl Hack of Open University of UK, a famous specialist on communism in Chin Peng. And later on, they also invited Professor Koo to make a statement of being witness in the court case. And both actually came up with the statement that Mat Indra was not a nationalist, but a communist. Now, for a while, this case captured the attention of many because people began to debate, began to talk about it. And today, if you want to look into some of these debates, you can still see them, watch them on YouTube, and also other websites. But even as the court case dragged on, the event took on a different twist when Professor Koo, while giving evidence in Mat Sabu and Mat Indra case, declared that the policemen at Bukit Kepong were effectively serving the sultans and not the British. And therefore, Mat Indra actually attacked the sultan rather than the British. He argues that Mat Indra and his men were attacking the policemen. They were under the sovereignty of the sultan and not Britain. Prof. Koo was reported to have declared that Malaya and its 9 sovereign monarchies had never been colonized. This was based on the nature of the treaty between Britain and the 9 sultans and rulers, was that they were protectorates, not colonies. Therefore, Malaya was never colonized. By implication, the 9 rulers continued to exercise power, and that Malaya was Dinauni, that's been protectorate, and not Dijajah, not colonized. So Professor Khoo's statement, sparked off another round of debate among Malaysians over a historical issue. Some of you may recall that a lot of our professors appeared on TV, started to debate on whether or not Malaysia was ever colonized and so on. This went on for a long time. But just as we thought that the issue would abate with the passing of time, Dr. Rachel Liao, the beautiful lady there, Malaysian, trained in Cambridge and now teaching in the history faculty at Cambridge University. She sustained this debate by writing an open letter to Professor Khoo, and it was published online, published in the major newspapers. Rachel Liao pointed out that Professor Khoo was relying on semantic, not historical sources, and that the use of this claim that, I quote, Malaya stands entirely outside the set of objects of historical study called colonial empire is not only wrong, it is positively perverse, unquote. So this was what was written by Rachel Liao in her letter. Rachel drew upon Professor Khoo's own study to argue how the British undermined the position of the Orang Besar, that there was a policy of ruling the Malays through their sultans, and that a more elaborate and highly centralized administrative machineries replaced the indigenous system. So the question of continuity and change in Malaysian history, and the question of reinterpreting Malaysia's history is captured in Rachel Liao's letter. Today, that's the last major topic of historical discourse in Malaysian public sphere. It demonstrates the discourse on history in the Malaysian public spheres that has definitely increased and spread wider over the years, with a better educated population who genuinely concerned about the nation's history and the country's future as well. Many views were expressed through the press as well as through other venues. Now, this has definitely kept the spirit of discourse going strong. But some of the issues were no longer relevant. Others, like the issue of teaching of history and the textbooks, persisted and remained a topic of contention. Now, I was made recently by a friend from Kementerian that the new syllabus and the new textbook is going to be introduced soon. And I hope this problem will be resolved by then. Hopefully. Now, it was in the next phase of development, especially through the advancement made in the internet and social media, which takes us to another level of discourse, which shows significant shift in the manner historians operate in the future. We all are, in some way, are citizens of the net. So therefore, we probably can call ourselves netizens in some ways. When internet was introduced, historians, just like anyone else, also began to adapt very fast to these technological changes. We began to see that we too began to serve the net initially, end user. We know how to Skype, talk to each other, talk to our colleagues across the seas. We began to have develop websites. Some of us who are dedicated to some kind of historical studies began to champion our cause by having websites, and also some kept blogs, and some people like me just barely able to do Facebook, and so on. Now, everyone seems to be on this net. If you're not on the net, you probably will be 20 years behind. New mode of publications also emerge. We don't find people carrying books, we see them carrying a pad or a phone, begin to read from them. And we find these things, online publication, reading from online sources, e-books, people can publish their own books now. You don't have to go through a publisher, you don't have to go through stringent refereeing process, which costs you a headache, because you can publish on your own. e-journals. Historians began to publish in e-journals, oral journals, including Sejarah are now e-journals. We have the print, we also have the e-journals, e-magazines such as History Today, very influential, BBC History. These are all very famous history journal magazines that are now online. You can find them online. So we are all very much into this. And for historians, many of us have been spending months away from home, sitting quietly, in the heart of the archives, flipping through old documents and so on, dusty with all these terrible things to do, And today, with the new databases, a lot of first-hand information, a lot of sources are now online. In the Diet Archives of Japan, they put up a lot of information about Japanese activities in Southeast Asia before the war. Australian National Archives, you can get a lot of documents pertaining to the formation of Malaysia, free, FOC, some you have to pay. Even then, all it takes is the swipe of your card, and you will get your sources in 3 weeks' time. And the National Archives of UK, they don't put out a lot of documents for you, but you can purchase them. You can buy tons of documents as long as you can pay them, or you can get someone to pay for you. The National Library of Singapore also offers some online information. A lot of the old newspapers of Malaya and Singapore are now available on this website. So you literally can sit at home to do your work. You don't have to travel. You don't have to, actually get a grant or something like that in order to find sources. You can actually do it at home. So with this kind of facilities, with this kind of databases, it is now possible for academics and non-academics, professional historians, amateurs, lay people to carry out research and engage in discourse and publish them, get them published. You don't even have to go to a proper publisher. You can publish it under your own brand name. Right? So this has changed the way we operate. This has changed the way we do history. And therefore, it will have some influence on how we look into history. And because of this, we began to find that a lot of people began to engage in some kind of historical research. History began to become very popular. Everyone can do history. Everyone can publish. And you find that never before, people can actually publish so much and get their voices heard. You also no longer constrained by the limited space of print media. You don't have to go through, you can even escape the control of the state, so long as you don't say something sensitive and so on. Well, in this way, many actually done very good work. We have seen some very outstanding work coming from netizen historians, and they should be, we should call them truly netizen historians. But we also have on the internet, just as in other spheres of activities, we also have some very questionable remarks, people putting up blogs, putting up comments, posted comments that are very negative, that very much reflective of racial chauvinism, mischievous, bigotry, some even spreading lies and so on. If I may quote the work of Professor Muhammad Haji Saleh, he said that lately, the blogs and websites on the internet that are quite wanting in proof, evidence proof. Many are drenched with emotion, racial, tribal, and also personal sentiments. In this free-floating work of emotions and passions, these advocates veer quite far from their sources and often do not stand on the firm ground of evidence and common sense. Now, hundreds of blogs, often from oral sources or reasoning, present to us episodes and spontaneous perspectives that have already drowned the scarce historical facts, which were not given much chance of rearing its head. This was from Professor Muhammad Haji Saleh who is a very famous scholar, and he began to notice this kind of activities, this kind of unhealthy activities that's going on. But nonetheless, the netizens were still very, very influential. And next, I'm going to demonstrate to you how influential it could be. This is a brass wrapping that you can on hang tuah that you can find in the National Museum. So this is the classic one, always appear on textbook cover. And here you have Tam Layu Hilang di Dunia. And hang tuah has always been the national hero to all of us. Although he was the Malay warrior from the Malaccan period, but the way he was portrayed in our national ethos is that that's the true Malaysian hero. For many years, I don't know if you remember this, there is a Pingat Hang Tuah, instituted in 1960, sustained even up until 1978. This was a medal given for gallantry, for bravery, for children under the age of 12 who probably saved someone from drowning and or fire and so on. So every year during the Children's Day, National Children's Day, the Agong will actually pin this medal on the winner. And sometimes it's a girl. So you have the Sri Kandi instead of the Vira and the hero. And we don't know why it was discontinued after 1978, but lately we noticed that some states also started to reintroduce this Pingat Hang Tuah concept, trying to revive this idea about Hang Tuah and the values that actually he embodied: unselfishness, loyal, and being brave, and so on. And we also have two movies being made for Hang Tuah. You have the first one, Piramli, the famous one, where in this one he was fighting against Hang Jebat, and also M. Nasir, Porting Putri Gunung Lendang. This is a more recent addition. We also have our KD Hang Tuah, one of our Royal Malaysian Navy ship was named after Hang Tuah, and that is one of our frigates. And then you have Kopi Hang Tuah, you should be brave afterwards. And in Indonesia, you also have Universitas Hang Tuah in Surabaya. You also have the Sekolah Tinggi Ilmu Kesehatan in Hang Tuah Pekanbaru. So Hang Tuah was basically a very important institution, not just any name, but an institution to all of us. But here you are, one day, this guy by the name of John Chow, or he called himself John Chow, began to put out a blog in his blog, this posting. He began to challenge the origins of Hang Tuah. He said, if I may, quote, this is what I heard, findings of the team of scientists, archaeologists, historians, and other technical staff from the United States. The S, without S, this was from him, not from me. United Kingdom, Germany, Canada, Yemen, and Russia. The graves of Hang Tuah, Hang Jebat, Hang Lekyu, and their close friends have been found, and their skeletons have been analyzed. Their DNA had been analyzed, and it's found that Hang Tuah, Hang Jebat, Hang Lekyu, etc. are not Malay, but Chinese. Islamic Chinese, just like the famous Admiral Cheng Ho, Zheng He. Now, Malacca, he went on and said, Malacca was the protectorate of China at the time, and the Emperor of China sent Malacca, the Sultan of Malacca, yellow gifts, all these yellow-colored umbrellas and so on, as a token of his sovereignty. The 5 warrior brothers were believed to be sent to help protect Malacca and the Sultan from Siam. So this was by John Chow. It looks very authentic. It looks as though some research had gone into it. He went on and talked about the term Hang. Hang should be like Hang Li Po. If Hang Li Po is Hang, was a Chinese, therefore Hang Tuah would be a Chinese as well. But he went on and talked about semantic. He went on and talked about other evidence. Very convincing. He even furnished you with a website, and you can actually go and have a look. Now, because of that, it started off a debate online. this kind of debate was very fierce. Some of them said, look, I can say that there is no real evidence due to distortion in historical facts, and that because the Hittite Hangua was altered by the influence of the British. All right, this is the first time I'm hearing this, but someone actually put it on. And someone said, the Sultan was visited by the famous Chinese Emperor Zheng He, and there were dealings between him and the